Hey, what's going on, everyone? Romeo here, a fellow Spanish language learner. In this video, I'm going to address what a lot of people think, including what I thought at one point, which is if I really want to learn Spanish, I need to move to a Spanish speaking country. To start, I do want to say that honestly, I believe that immersion matters. In 2023, my wife and I lived in Medellin, Colombia for 2 months. And being there absolutely forced me to speak more Spanish. I couldn't hide. I needed to order food in Spanish. I needed to ask for help finding products in grocery stores and convenience stores. And I needed to ask for general directions from time to time. And I also had frequent interaction with the staff at the apartment hotel that we were living in. That frequency helped. It increased my exposure to the language. It increased the pressure I had to overcome when I was forced to speak the language. And it forced me to dig for words so I can provide them as Spanish output. But here's what immersion didn't do for me and what it will not do for you. It does not increase what you're capable of saying. Even when you're forced to speak more, you can still only say what you know. If your grammar is shallow, your vocabulary is limited, and your sentence construction is unstable, immersion just forces you to repeat the same level of conversation over and over, the one that you're comfortable with. So, in other words, you just get better at surviving. You don't necessarily get deeper with the language. It's true that when I was in Colombia in 2023, I had more Spanish interactions than I would have had at home. But many of those conversations were variations of the same thing: ordering, small talk, and basic questions. And what that exposure really did was show me how much I didn't know. Immersion increases frequency, but if you want to increase your capacity, that comes from deliberate study. While living in Colombia, and even after leaving Colombia, I continued studying informally on my own. I continued my morning routine of working through Complete Spanish Step by Step, watching Destinos and Introduction to Spanish Telenovela, and doing translation drills and tracking my hours. About a year later, I went back to Colombia to visit with a few friends, and the difference was noticeable. My conversations became more dynamic, more entertaining, and more connection based. Not because Colombia changed, but because my understanding had expanded. Since living in Colombia for those 2 months, I've revisited about 5 more times. And what's interesting is that each trip back felt different. I could follow more conversations more fully. I could better follow up questions. I could tell longer stories instead of giving short answers. And I could clarify things instead of pretending that I understood. The environment didn't create that expansion. The studying did. Immersion will give you more reps. But if your reps are limited to what you already know, your growth plateaus quickly. What actually expands your range is structured exposure to new grammar, broader vocabulary, and increasingly complex listening input. That's what my studying did for me, and what the 1 year to fluency tracker can do for you if you follow the study recommendations and daily study frequency as written. Complete Spanish Step by Step builds the foundation. Destinos progressively increases your listening comprehension with real dialogue and narrative context. Translation-based speaking drills force precision. Quizlet flashcard reviews prevents vocabulary leakage. And the tracker measures everything: weeks completed, tasks finished, hours invested, everything. Now, again, I'm not saying that immersion isn't worth the money, but what I'm arguing against is the idea that immersion will teach you Spanish. Only you can deliberately increase what you are capable of producing. And then, and only then, immersion becomes powerful. If you complete a structured 60-week system and then place yourself in a Spanish speaking environment, now you're operating at a different level. Now you're not just surviving interactions, you're extending them. You're building rapport. You're discussing ideas instead of just logistics. That's where relationships deepen. That's where casual interactions turn into friendships. And that's where you stop feeling like a tourist, even if you're technically are one. Without preparation, immersion exposes your limits. With preparation, immersion accelerates your growth. Also, here's something to think about. Relocating to a Spanish-speaking country for a few months can cost thousands of dollars. Flights, rent, time off of work. But unless you're deliberately training grammar and output, what you're going to end up paying for is just frequency of interactions with the language, not expansion of what you can say in the language. Why spend $1,000+ when for under $150, including the core resources and the 1 year to fluency tracker, you can build structured immersion at home? The tracker removes decision fatigue. You don't ask what to study, you just open it, you complete the task, you check the box. Phase 1 builds familiarity and comprehension, and Phase 2 forces output and makes you speak. 60 weeks, clear hours, clear progress. Listening, reading, speaking, recycling. That's immersion with expansion. And if you decide to travel or move later, now it compounds. Now it multiplies. Now those forced conversations actually go somewhere. If you want this exact system, then make sure you follow the link to the 1 year to fluency tracker below. But whether you use mine or build your own, don't confuse geography with skill. They are related, but they are not the same thing. Now I'm curious, have you ever moved to a Spanish speaking country? Did your relationships deepen while you were there? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments. And as always, until the next video, good luck on your journey to building more functional, usable Spanish. Peace.